Hi, and welcome to the National New Teacher Support Podcast brought to you by New Teacher University, and I'm your host and principal, Dr. Terry Ross. I'm so excited that you joined us today because we have a guest with us today that is going to share strategies with you to help you improve your health, to make sure that your lifespan is your health span as an educator. Today, I have with us Ms. Sonia Shepherd, owner and founder of Sunray Bliss LLC. And at Sunray Bliss LLC, they focus on health and wellness. And today she's going to share strategies with us for teachers. I'm so excited that she's here with us today because we're going to talk about ways to make health the main thing in your life. Make health your hobby just as you make cooking or reading or bird watching. We're going to talk about owning your body and making sure that we listen to our bodies. And the topic today is Primetime Health, a roadmap to educators aging well. Now, one of the things that people always say about educators and especially teachers is that you cannot tell their age. So today, guys, we're really in for a treat because teachers already age well, and now we're going to get some intentional strategies to help us make sure that we age well. I started teaching many, many years ago, and I'm so excited about my journey in education. And I began to make my journey in education about health many years ago when I became an administrator, and I began to wake up in the middle of the night with heartburn. I began to wake up in the middle of the night in sweats, and it was in my first year as a principal, and I thought, this is not healthy. I can't go to bed every night with the weight of what's happening in the school or in the classroom on my shoulders. So, health and wellness has been just a huge piece of my life for so long. And when I started New Teacher University, I wanted to make sure that all of the people, all of the students, teachers that came to New Teacher University, that they understood that wellness was going to be at the center of what we're doing. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm excited that we have Ms. Sonia Shepherd with us from Sunray Bliss LLC. And I'm going to let Ms. Shepherd introduce yourself and tell us who you are. How did you get to where you are, and why did you start Sunray Bliss LLC?
Thank you so much, Terry, for having me on your podcast. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a classroom teacher. I've actually been teaching for 27 years. And this is, well, to be actually about to be the beginning of my 28th year of teaching. So, throughout my years, as a lot of teachers, great ideas, staying up late, creating things for my class, doing all these wonderful things and not always being intentional about my health. And when you're younger, you might not always be intentional about your health because you have youth on your side and you think that, hey, I'm going to be like this forever. But, several years ago, I started just feeling extremely tired, extremely run down, and just feeling stressed. And this was even prior to the pandemic happening. And I started, asking my doctor like questions like, okay, what's going on? Getting brain fog, not being able to remember. And she was just saying, well, you're just getting a little bit older, and that could be it. And I'm thinking, all right, I'm too young to have dementia. At least she was saying I was too young to have dementia. I shouldn't have this brain fog. What's going on? And why am I feeling this way? And my doctor wasn't able to fully give me the insights that I felt like I needed in order to do better. So I started doing more research. And then once the pandemic hit, of course, stress levels went through the roof. And I really had to start looking at and being more intentional about my health. So I've been intentional. I looked at health and was doing things, but I really had to be even more intentional, especially as it related to stress and how it was showing up for me. So I did some research. I got involved with a particular company that's called Breathe for Change. And we were teaching SEL at the school. And this gave me an opportunity to go even deeper with SEL and think about, well, how can I use this? And I know if I'm stressed, my colleagues are probably also stressed. And then how is
Yes,
this affecting our students? How is this affecting all of us? Because as teachers, we know we set the tone for the class, we set the tone for
absolutely.
what's going on, and our students can feel what we're feeling. So if we're feeling stressed, we're not helping them, we're not helping ourselves. And then I wasn't really being there and helpful for my own children that I gave birth to and that I have. So I was looking at how am I helping my husband, my children, my family, myself. So with that program for Breathe for Change, I got an added bonus of not only going in and looking at it for the purpose of SEL and going deeper with that, but then I was able to get certified to teach yoga, which helped me to further learn how to de-stress and be present in the moment instead of thinking about the past or looking towards the future. It really helped me to learn how to be present in the now and to take hold of my breathing techniques and certain things that I wasn't necessarily doing to help myself to de-stress and to regulate my own feelings and my own mood. So that was one of the first things that I did. And then I wanted to continue. So more recently, I found myself going through a program with the Dr. Sears Wellness Institute. So now I've had one more training underneath my belt
Okay.
with looking at being a certified health coach. So with that portion, that helped me to not only think about how I was looking at my attitude with life, but it also helped me to really begin to look at the whys with nutrition. Like we hear, like, okay, you need to eat healthy, but then everybody doesn't really know, well, what does that really, really mean when it's say eating healthy and how food really plays a key factor in our overall health and how it plays the factor with either helping us to do better and to age well or to help us to break down quicker. So all of those things played a role with helping me to where I am now with leading a healthier life and just wanting to be an advocate for not only myself, but for other teachers and even for other people in general, because these are best practices that not only teachers can use, but just people in general. But for the purpose of today, I really want us to focus in on what are some practical things that we as educators can do. And as you said earlier in your opening, that we already age well, but what are
Yes.
things we can do to age even better and to really enjoy by the time we get to the point of retirement to really be able to enjoy our retirement with good health and happiness and vitality.
Yes, thank you so much for that. That's was an awesome introduction. And when you said 28 years, I had to look again because I'm like, look at her skin. Because those of us who are health practitioners, we study skin, hair, nails, because we know that those are the first things that you can really tell how healthy a person is. So
Right.
thank you for sharing that and being transparent about your years of experience, because that's a marketing tool right there.
Well, thank you so
Absolutely.
much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. That's a marketing tool right there. So I'm excited that you're here with us today to talk about this because when I started New Teacher University, I don't know whether wellness was at the top of what I was talking about. However, it quickly bubbled to the top. And I'm so glad that there's a group of us out there that's beating the drum around teacher wellness because, again, and I said on every wellness podcast, that the post pandemic principle is going to have to lead with more compassion than any other principle in modern history. First of all, we have a multi-generational teaching force, that we have people that are still boomers that are in baby boomers that are in education all the way through to millennials. And that generation, they're not like we were, where we were told, hey, you go in, yes, you're going to go through some things, but just stay there and make it happen. You know, that builds character and strength. That generation to say, this is not worth my mental health.
Right. And they are ready to walk out the door
They will leave. Yes, they will leave.
very
And the
quickly.
thing about it is it costs us money when teachers leave and we don't support teacher retention through wellness, because that's usually what it is. They don't feel supported.
Right.
And if we don't support them through wellness, they'll leave. And in an urban district, it costs about $20,000 to replace a teacher. So for every 5 teachers that we replace in an urban district, that is 2 new teacher salaries.
Yeah, that's true.
And we don't look at the cost of teacher retention. Who pays that cost? We all pay the cost, but the ultimate cost for teacher retention is our students.
That's true.
And we need to make sure our students are our most valuable resource. So we need to make sure that we're supporting teachers, that we're supporting teacher wellness, and that we keep our teachers in a space where they feel like they matter.
I agree
So
with you
thank you
wholeheartedly.
for joining us today. And so let's get into it. You have three strategies that you're going to share with us today. What is the first strategy that you're going to share from Sunray Bliss LLC to help us age well? Because I'm here for it.
All right. So I'm looking at Sunray Bliss, and I'm also using some of the strategies and information that I've learned from the Dr. Sears Wellness Institute. So it's a combination of information. So just to make
Yes,
sure that I'm also giving credit where credit is due. So this first one is actually one that I did get from the Dr. Sears Wellness Institute. So I just want to ask you a question.
yes,
So Terry, do you happen to have an IRA?
I do.
All right. And many of us do. I do as well.
Yes.
Do you happen to have an IRAH?
Now tell me what that is. I'm not familiar with an IRAH.
All right. So an IRA is an individual retirement account, but an
Yes.
IRAH is an individual retirement account for health. Do you happen to have that?
I think I do. I think I do because I invest heavily in my health, but I've never looked at it like that. But I
Okay.
do invest heavily, so I'm here for that. But I want to know what it is so that I can be intentional about it. I want to be
Okay.
intentional.
Very good. So one of the first things that I want to talk to everyone about today, and just to mention, is we're always, as educators or just people in general, we'll think about our IRA because we're thinking about, hey, when I retire, I want to make sure I can still live well. But the one thing that we might not always consider or thinking about with an IRAH is putting that same level of intentionality into our health, because the worst thing we can do is to spend all that time creating an IRA and we have this money, but now we're spending all that money giving it to our doctor because of our health. Our health is failing.
Yes.
So the IRAH is helping us to really think about and be intentional about, what are those questions I need to ask myself? What am I doing right now with my health to ensure that when I retire, I can enjoy that money that I put aside and that I've saved, and that I can enjoy it for the long term? So it's taking the time to really look at your health in general and put those strategies in place of, what is it that I want to do with my health? Am I eating right? What kind of foods am I eating? What kind of things am I doing right now that I know in my younger years, in my 20s, 30s, 40s, that I know I love doing, that I still want to be able to do when I'm 60, 70, 80, and even 90 years old? What are those things that I don't want to just necessarily say, I'm going to go somewhere and sit down and be immobile? If I'm mobile now, what are the things I need to be doing now to ensure that when I become 60, 70, and 80, I'm still able to do that? So it's really being intentional about your health, and what are the things that you're doing that could be diminishing your health, and not just taking it to chance or leaving it just to your doctor, but for you to come up with a plan and to actually work in conjunction with your doctor to say, hey, these are the things that I want to do. What kind of things can you help guide me through to help me figure out that to increase my lifespan and my vitality in my later years of life? So that's what your IRAH is doing for you to begin the process of looking at, what do you want to do, and then working in conjunction with your doctor and a nutritionist if you need to, if you need to
Yes.
get a trainer or those kinds of things. What are the things that you're doing that's going to help your body to work at its optimal highest so you can enjoy retirement?
Thank you
So
so much. That you elevated a lot there. And I like the first time you said so that we can do well in our 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Don't be afraid to go to that 90. The second time you stop at 80, because I plan on in my 90s to still be moving
that's it.
around and making some things happen.
To still
Uh,
be moving around. Yes.
absolutely. I mean,
And to,
and
and to move around with good health and
yes,
still be able to move. And, if you're looking towards, if you have children, I'm sure you would want to be around when they have children. And
and
even
their
with
children have
children
children.
have children, that you would still want to be around and still be able to move with them. Maybe not as quickly, but still able to move and do many of the things. If you enjoy dancing, then say, hey, I still want to be able to dance in my
Yeah.
80s and 90s.
Yes.
If you enjoy going out for walks in natures. So that's what it's about, making sure that you're intentional with the activities that you're doing now to see how can I still be able to do these things that I love when I get on much older in life and still enjoy it along with the money that I've saved. And I'm not giving all that money to my doctor. I'm able to still do it with and use it on the activities that I enjoy using them on. So
Absolutely.
about
When in my 20s, first started teaching, my mom passed. And I thought, okay, and I've never really told anyone this, and I've never shared it on the podcast, that I was going to walk away from teaching for many of the same reasons that new teachers walk away, not feeling supported, had a lot of ideas. I was implementing those ideas, had a lot of support around those ideas, and people just kind of like just started railing against me. And when my mom died, I said, well, I have space now. I went to massage therapy school.
okay.
So I'm a trained massage therapist, which led me to natural health. And so my doctor is my diagnostician. I go to find out what's wrong with me, and that's it.
Okay.
When I first met my doctor, he told me, he asked me, do you have a gym membership? And I was like, no, I'm from a rural area. We didn't have gym memberships. You get out and you work and you cut the grass and you do
Right.
things like that. That's how
Right.
you get
Right.
your exercise in. And I got my wife bought me my first gym membership when I told her about that for my birthday that year. And so ever since then, I've remained active. And I began to use my doctor as a diagnostician for me. And we are a partnership around my health. And I go every year to get my physical, but then I come back and I heal myself through my diet, through natural herbs and things like that. So that's kind of how I use. So I was glad to hear you say get a nutritionist, a
Mhm.
trainer, because you have to have a team.
That's it.
You need a team to keep you healthy, and they don't necessarily have to know each other, but you have to know yourself well enough to know how to properly access that team.
Correct. Correct. And I'm glad that you were saying that in terms of knowing yourself, um, because it does come back to that self-care and recognizing, looking at what is it that I really like and beginning to know more of who you are as a person. So one of the things, and give me one moment.
Okay.
All right. So one area that I want us to think about and look at is with this IRAH and why it's important. Just looking at where we are in this particular country, I just want to go over a few statistics, just from different research and in different areas that I've looked into, and a part of being a part of Primetime Health, some of the things that they've given me as well. In the United States, more than 80% of aging adults take at least one prescription medicine.
Wow.
And more than 35% of aging adults take anywhere from 5 or even more medicines. So, this is again another one of those reasons why looking at our health, and the earlier we can do it, the better it is for us as we move into our upper ages in life. Another statistic is in this country, we spend twice as much than other comparable countries on our health. And we have the highest chronic disease burden and an obesity rate that is twice as high, again, as other comparable countries to the United States. And one of the last statistics is 6 in 10 adults have a chronic disease, and 4 in 10 adults have 2 or more chronic diseases. So, with these statistics, just keeping it on a general level, as a whole, when we start looking at ourselves and start looking at our self care, it's imperative so we don't find ourselves falling into these statistics. And that doesn't mean that we have to, but if we're intentional, we most likely will not. So the key word, and you had said it earlier, intentionality, and I know I'm saying it,
Yeah.
it really is about being intentional, not leaving it to chance and not just leaving it again to just your doctor, but looking at some things, some practical things you can do for yourself. So that leads me to my next point that I want to make, which
So
is,
let me interject right here just really fast. We
sure,
talked, this was about the IRAH. And so
yes,
educators, that's coming from the world of finance. I'm going to bring it into the education world for you.
okay,
You need not an SIP, which is a school improvement plan. You need an HIP, which is a health improvement plan. I know
there
you
you go.
understand that. You get
Yes,
that school improvement plan every year, and you begin to build your quarterly plans and your weekly lesson plans from that. Let's make sure that you look at that IRAH just like it's your health improvement plan, and that you be intentional, that you are very intentional about it. We cannot go to work and create all of these plans, have all of these structures and systems in place, and then we get home and we just want to plop on the couch
that's
because
it
we're tired, because we're worn out. Save some of you for you.
for
And I'm
you.
always saving some of me for me. And if you don't save it for you, save it for your family.
That's
Save
it.
it for the people who love you, because that school is going to be there. My first principal job, my wife and we were there, and she was also my school counselor. And someone passed away in the school. They had the funeral that Friday evening. It was in a rural school. They had the funeral that Friday evening in the school. That Monday morning, they did 20 seconds of silence, and the day went on. And we passed by each other in the hall, and we looked at each other, and we were like, wow, wow. Because that's what life is. Life goes on, and they're going to hire your replacement. Your students are going to miss you for a while, and they're going to talk about you, and your legacy will be around, but will you be here? So let's be intentional about this, about our health, and make sure that when we get home, that even before we get home at work, take the long way back from the lunchroom. Choose
Mm-hmm.
something raw to eat for lunch, an apple, a pear, some grapes, blueberries, something that's going to make you healthy. I've been so intentional about it. That's why I'm so stoked about this podcast today. So let's move on. I'm sorry.
Fantastic. No, no apologies. You're actually helping to get into some of what I'm going to talk about.
Oh,
So I definitely appreciate that. That's a great thing. And bringing it back, you brought up something that I was thinking about as well. One of my coworkers, and you know, rest her spirit. I'm just really intentional, serious about this because I think about how she worked all of these years. She got to the space of retirement. She was asked to come back to help out just for a little bit, and then she had to go back out because she was sick. And within 6 months, she was gone. She didn't even get a chance to fully enjoy her retirement. And a similar kind of thing. Yes, we all were sad, and we but we moved on. And as you said, as you just said a moment ago, life moves on because that's a part of what life is. We move on, and the school is going to move on because they'll, at the end of the day, they'll still need somebody to fill that space. And we'll all feel sad, but now that person is not here and they didn't get a chance to do what they probably were looking forward to. So in the midst of this podcast, you just hear us saying, be intentional,
yes,
look at your health. You've got to look at you. That lesson plan is going to be there. That test that you want to create, those kids are going to take, it's going to be there. The question is, do you want to be there like those items that you're trying to create?
that's it. 100.
So so take that time for you. And I know I've heard from other teacher friends like, but I don't have the time. I don't have the time. So one thing that we know that will come in for us because there are things that will be thrown at us every day, it can build up with stress. And when our bodies create stress, our bodies create cortisol.
Yes,
And cortisol, actually, we would want to get rid of cortisol and decrease that stress because cortisol can cause weight gain. Cortisol can cause brain fog. Cortisol can cause and lead towards heart disease. Cortisol can lead towards glycemia or hypertension. Cortisol can lead towards type 2 diabetes, like all of these things. And it's increased continuous cortisol. So if you're continuing to allow stress to overtake you, the stress of our job, the stress of whatever that evaluation is that you're thinking about, your body is just producing more and more and more. And the more it produces, the more it's diminishing our health. So it's a matter of taking those moments, and something that I've started doing, and this is a Harvard research study that shows just by taking some intentional deep breaths, like breathing in through our nose for a count of 4, hold it for 2, and then breathe out for a count of 6. So, and thank you, Terry. We can try that again.
I did. Yes, ma'am. I'm a breather all day long.
Let's try one more time. We can try one more time. Breathe in through our nose for a count of 4. Hold it for a count of 2. And breathe out through our mouth for a count of 6.
Thank you.
Just by doing several of those, that helps to decrease our heart rate.
Yes.
Lowering our blood pressure. Just that one simple thing. And that doesn't take a lot of time because we breathe every day anyway, but we're not always thinking about it. We're not thinking about how increasing that amount of oxygen is going to also decrease our blood pressure, decrease our heart rate, and bring us to a place of stability. And we know sometimes being as teachers, our own students can bring us to a place where our blood pressure is ready to rise. Take a moment to take some deep breaths.
And I was just thinking as you were saying that, you know how we have class helpers? Have your breather. Somebody that's going to stop doing the class, and let's take 2 of these through every class period. Imagine having a student to say, okay, it's time for our breathing. Imagine what that would do for even the students, because we don't breathe enough. We don't expand. We don't fill our lungs up. We're very lazy, top lung breathers.
Shallow with our breathing.
Yes. And see, I've been in some situations where I had to sit there and take deep breaths while I was looking at somebody, because if I hadn't been breathing,
it probably wouldn't have gone too well, and you wouldn't have wanted that.
So when they see me sitting down, my chest is going up. Oh, I'm not upset. I'm helping you.
That's it. Helping both of you, really, in that instance. So just by taking deep breaths helps to reduce that cortisol within your body. And it's helping to put a stop to that cortisol continuously pumping into your bodies. Our bodies weren't designed to feel continuous stress. Now, of course, the cortisol is great for, like, if you find yourself in a situation where, I don't know, you're outside and a lion or some crazy animal is about to chase you.
Like our ancestors.
Like our ancestors. You needed to be able to move quick, and you needed that quick adrenaline. But our body doesn't always need to be in a continuous space of stress. So remembering to breathe, that's one of the that's one of the things that we can do. Remembering to even stretch. I started using yoga in my class with my students, and the breathing techniques, as you was talking about. I did not have a student that was our student, but I would have a timer that would go off, like at least once an hour to say, okay, this is our moment to take a brain break or a breathing break, or we would do some actually yoga poses, and we would just take a moment to just stretch. So not only was it helping them to alleviate what they needed to, but it was helping me as well as the teacher to set the tone, as I was saying earlier, that's what we do as teachers, set a tone, but it's also reminding them that it's important to take care and look at your own health, and trying to help them at an early age to understand and recognize the importance of it, but also coming back to myself, remembering this is a time for me. So as I was saying earlier, I have a lot of teacher friends that would say, I don't have time. Build that time into your schedule in a day. Just sitting at your seat, stretching your hands up above your head, taking a moment to stand behind your chair, stretch your arms out, putting it on the edge of the chair, and stretching and arching your back. Little things. It doesn't have to, you can make little changes and then begin building them in. It doesn't have to be a huge overhaul. It's just making minor changes and then building upon those minor changes to eventually help to get you to where you desire to be, which ultimately is to have good health.
Okay, so let's move on to point two before we have to have this podcast in a two-part series because
Right.
this is good. This is really good. You
Okay.
warned me in the beginning.
Well,
So what?
so no, so making health your hobby, that actually was part two. So
Okay,
we can
great,
get
great.
ready. So
Oh,
we're
so
actually moving, we're moving
we
along.
moved into it.
Along.
Great.
Yes.
Making
So
health your hobby.
making health your hobby. So the first one was looking at your IRAH, and then the second one was making health your hobby and looking at the things in which you can do to help, whether it's something as simple as taking those deep breaths, whether it's something as stretching at your seat,
Yes.
or being even more intentional after work or during work.
Yes.
Instead of and Terry, you said this earlier, instead of going the short route, go the long route to get to where you're going. Increase your steps. Just
Yes.
doing some basic walking, or after school, maybe pull a couple of the other teachers and you all walk the building 2 or 3 times before you go to get into your car. Those are other things in which you could actually do to help with bringing in exercise. So that's one of the things that you can do as well. So looking at exercise and also looking at your overall health with breathing.
Well,
So
thank you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. So one of the things within the um, Dr. Sears Wellness Program is we look at lean, which is looking at a lifestyle, exercise, attitude, and nutrition. So we talked a little bit a moment just about lifestyle and attitude. We're really looking at that self-care and those things that you can do even while at work that could help with decreasing stress and cortisol. One of the other things that I would like for us to look at, and Terry, you talked about it as well, even with the foods that you bring in and eat. This is one of the last points that I wanted to talk about with making health your hobby. Look at those foods that you're going to eat. Eat more real foods. It's real
Yes.
easy for us to pick up that fast food and to pick up something that's in a bag. But if we're looking at the back of the packaging and we're looking at the ingredients, if you can't pronounce the majority of the things on the back of the label, then that might not be the healthiest choice for you. So we don't have to start with throwing everything out, but just make some minor changes. Um, instead of eating some kind of fruit snack, bring an actual apple, bring some real fruit and eat and have some grapes or something of that nature.
Yeah,
Uh,
because first of all, if it has a label, it's not real.
it's not
It's
real.
been
No,
processed. So let me ask you one quick question. You said
sure.
lean is lifestyle, exercise, attitude,
And
and,
nutrition.
and nutrition. Okay. Thank you
Hmm.
so much. And that led us into food. Thank you so
And
much.
that's leading us into food, because one of the last things that I wanted to talk about, so I did talk about food. So that was a quick snippet. One of the last and final points that I want to make is looking at how our body makes its own medicine. And our body can make its own medicine based on when we begin exercising more. That's one of the quickest ways that our body can make its own medicine, by bringing in more nitric oxide. So nitric oxide, that's one of those things in which the more of it that we have, the more medicine that our body will make, meaning our body it really does have the ability to heal itself. But we have to take the time to listen to our body and see, first of all, what's going wrong, so we can begin putting in systems that's going to help to move us forward. And one of the quickest ways in order for our body to work through trying to heal itself is with basic exercise. So when I was talking about taking the longer route, that also will help to increase more nitric oxide, help us to breathe more, and also help that medicine bottle within our body to open up. And we might not think about it from that perspective, but with exercise and with even some of the basic foods that we eat. So some of the foods that I want to get into.
So let me, one quick question. Our first strategy was the IRAH.
Yes,
Our second strategy was health as our hobby. And our third strategy is what?
is wisdom of the body, which is helping our body to make its own medicine.
Yes, if we treat our body well, it will take care of, it will treat us well. So
It's
thank you so
yes,
much for that. So IRAH, our individual retirement health plan, health
yes,
as a hobby, and
yes.
the wisdom of our body.
Wisdom of our body. Just
Yes, thank you.
just listening to our body. Our body is always speaking to us. When you get an ache or a pain, it's not just coming out of the blue. That's our body telling us something is going on and we need to pay attention to it.
Yes.
What exactly are we going to do with that information? So, one of the things we can do in order to help us is to, again, look at the foods that we're eating and also look at just moving. Now, when I say exercise, because some people might cringe and they might not want to, even though it's something that's beneficial for us, think about all of the ways in which we move.
Mhm.
Walking around the building, that's something that we have to do. Coming home, if you like to garden, be intentional with how you're moving. If
Yes.
you're writing on the board, take a moment to stretch a little bit deeper to write that thing on the board. It's being creative with how you move your body. If you like to dance, put on some music and dance. And if you're in the classroom, that could be another great brain break that your students, they know they like to dance and move. That
Yes.
could give you an opportunity to dance and move. But as we look at our body making its own medicine, it's really putting in that movement. But in order for our body to get into that space, we want to keep that continuous movement. So the one that will be really helpful is if before you get in your car, walk the building. Or if you get a trainer and you're like, okay, I'm ready to take the next step, get a trainer or somebody that can guide you through how to really move your body. If you get a nutritionist, what are some things and foods in which you can eat that's going to help create more nitric oxide, which in turn is going to, and I guess let me get more into it. That nitric oxide is there to really help your body to repair itself as well. So that's what I'm talking about, your body creating its own medicine, and it's also helping with your immune system. So if you're exercising, you're also helping your immune system so you won't get as sick, so you can be healthier at that point. So that's what it is. And it also will decrease your blood pressure just by
Mhm.
exercising. So that's something. So if you're somebody that is suffering with high blood pressure, just moving, that'll help to build up that nitric oxide and it can help decrease your blood pressure. Also, we talked about breathing with doing yoga if you desire to go into a deeper stretch. All of these areas, the IRAH, making health your hobby, really talking about what you would like, what things are you doing that's going to help you in your health endeavors, and making your own medicine through exercising, and even with the foods that we eat. One more thing, because getting back to the foods and making your own medicine, um, eating things that have omega-3 in them, such as salmon, and wild caught salmon really would be the best kind. And Pacific salmon is the actual best over a farm raised salmon. That's a whole nother podcast getting into the ins and outs as to the whys, but really looking at those would be great.
But
Eating.
also chia seeds.
Yep, that's what I was about to say. Seeds. So look
Yes.
at blueberries for that vitamin C, or actually any of most of the berries like blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, and as you said, different types of seeds. Chia seeds, pumpkin seeds are really great antioxidants. Um, Looking at eating celery, that's another good one. Your green leafy vegetables, spinach, broccoli, all of those are different types of foods. And when you think about it, when you were younger, you might have heard somebody say eating the rainbow. It really is true. The food that we eat have natural properties in them. So those different colors, if you're eating the various colors, those are different vitamins and minerals that are natural. That even though if you take a multivitamin, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with supplements. In addition to that, eat the rainbow and you'll be automatically eating those different nutrients. So looking at, again, just to repeat, what are your three main things that can really help you as an educator to age and continue to age well is
Yeah.
looking at your IRAH and what you want to do and how you want to live in your retirement years and being intentional about it, making health your hobby and looking at what kind of healthy things can you do in order to help yourself move into what kind of things that could be fun or exciting as you move into those later years. And the earlier you start, the better. And the last one, make help your body to make its own medicine through exercise and movement and the foods that we eat.
Thank you so much. This has been an enjoyable podcast for me. This has been an enjoyable segment because I'm always on health, because we need to feel good. Something I heard Tony Robbins say years ago, and he said, make your lifespan your health span. You don't
Yeah,
want to live to be 80, but you're spending those last 30 years just in the doctor's office, in and out of the hospital, in a wheelchair, on a walker. I want to come into my 90th birthday party and tell them, put on my theme music.
that's it. Yes. And I saw that. I saw that video.
I want to be like her. I want to come in and I want to be I want to be in shape. I want to look good and I want to hit a twist or two at my 90th birthday party. Absolutely. And we can do that. It's absolutely, I've always felt that if we didn't have an accident or something, we shouldn't be dying.
Nope.
That's something that I made up in my mind. If it's not an accident, I shouldn't be getting ill and leaving here, because when my body talks to me, when that light come on in our car, we're the first people to run to the shop.
We
Well,
are.
those aches, those pains, those headaches, that swelling, that stiffness, that's our body light coming on.
That is.
We need to make sure that we go and find out what that is, and then don't just be so open to take a medicine. I've seen people that pride themselves on their Ziploc bag of medicine. They just take it out. Yeah, this is my medicine. I'm like, wow, you know, and I don't want to rail against that, because if you need it, however, if we know that it's blood pressure and we know that eating beets can help with your blood pressure,
I know. It's like, then why not?
why not eat some beets? I don't like beets, but you are okay with the pills.
It is. It is an interesting thing, isn't it? You
It's
know,
very interesting. So
that
thank you for joining us today. Do you have just one strategy or one word of encouragement that you like to share with our teachers? Because this podcast is not just for the new teachers. This is for all educators, the
all
principals, the
educators.
secretaries, the teachers' assistants, all faculty and staff in the building need to watch this podcast. So do you have a parting word that you'd like to share?
I would. And one thing I would like for all of us to remember that um, I don't know if Sister Ayanla Van Zant was the first one to say this, but I definitely heard her say that self-care is not selfish, it is self-full.
Yeah.
So fill yourself up, be as healthy as you can be, live as long as you can, and live a vitality and healthful life.
Thank you so much. And this is Miss Sonia Shepherd from Sunray Bliss LLC. You have truly dropped a lot of knowledge on us today, and I can tell that you're passionate about this work. So we'll make sure that all of her information is at the end of this podcast. Let's make sure that we reach out to Miss Sonia Shepherd at Sunray Bliss LLC, because we definitely want our lifespan to be our health span. And thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining me on the National New Teacher Support Podcast, brought to you by New Teacher University. I'm your principal and host, Dr. Terry Ross. And remember to enjoy the journey, because someone wishes they were in your shoes. And always remember, teachers, that there's some child that came to school today because of you. There's some child that their day is not made if you're not there. We want you there, but we want you healthy and we want you happy. So let's figure this thing out. We're not going to spend all of our time at home grading papers. I tell teachers all the time, hey, let row A take row B papers, or row A take row C papers, and row B take row D papers. Grade those papers, put those grades in the book, and you go home and put on your theme music. You go
That's
home and
it.
get on your patio and breathe. You go home and have some fun with your family. I don't want any educators raising someone else's children, and your children are at home missing you. And I was very intentional about that as an administrator. My daughter had all of my attention at all times, and whatever was going on, I don't care. Assistant superintendent, whoever calling me from the school, I was a principal. I'm going to get my daughter at 3 o'clock today. She will not stand and wait for me. So whatever you have for me, you can send it through HR if you want to, but I'm going to take care of my family.
And that's how it should be. Yes.
Yes, because you're not going to run my life. But I know we didn't need to get into that. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for joining me on the National New Teacher.
I appreciate that. No, actually, no, it's not that we didn't. Yes, we did, because somebody needed to hear what you just said. So
well, let me say it again then. Go and take care of your family. Go and sit on that patio and breathe. Take that extra walk around the building. And thank you for joining me on the National New Teacher Support Podcast, brought to you by NewTeacherUniversity. I'm your host and your principal, Dr. Terry Ross. Thank you.